Well, hello, everyone. Here we are today on Ask the Experts. We're going to do a little talk on self help and nutrition and how those two things are related, or self care, I should say. And Lisbeth, go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone.
Okay, I'm Lisbeth Irish. I'm a registered dietitian, nutritionist, and a certified diabetes care and education specialist. And my current role at the New York State Office for the Aging is that I'm the SNAP Education Program Manager, which is a really exciting position to have in NYSOFA.
Thank you so much. And my name is Wendy Beckman, and I am also a registered dietitian. And I used to work with Lisbeth on the SNAP-Ed grant that helps to provide nutrition education to older adults throughout New York State. And Lisbeth is now doing that full time. And we're lucky to have her. So she is actually an expert on many topics, including nutrition and diabetes. So I know that you have a presentation that you're going to go over. So why don't we start out with that? First thing I want to tell everyone is that I will be keeping an eye on the chat box. And so if any of you have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to put them in the chat box. We'd love to get your questions and we'd love to answer them. And we will do that to the best of our ability. So with that, I'll have Lisbeth start off.
Sure. Well, one of the reasons that I am happy to be a guest today is that I love to share things about the SNAP-Ed resources that are available to everyone. And today I'm just going to start a little bit with few slides. So we're going to start now. So there's my name there, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Nutrition is one of the best ways that we can take care of ourselves. Our basic human needs are clean air, clean water, shelter, and food. So nutrition is tied into that last one, and also clean water. How we fuel our bodies determines how well our body performs the way that we want it to, how it takes care of our needs. So it's very important. Sometimes it can feel really overwhelming though. You know, when somebody says, I'm going to try and eat better, there can be sort of an initial feeling of stress or being overwhelmed, because what does that mean? How do you do it? So my next slide will tell you how I used to feel about it when I came home after working and trying to take care of 3 kids, prepare dinner, and run them all over to the different places that they wanted to go. And I'm a dietitian. And, you know, I was probably less stressed than other people about how to prepare foods, what to serve my family, but I still felt like this many days. So next slide. So there's a lot of barriers to eating well for some of us, you know, barriers that cause a lot of stress. Our food budget can cause a lot of stress, especially nowadays. The cost of food is going up, and it just becomes harder and harder to buy the things that we know we should eat. Even back when I was raising my 3 kids, it was still a very big challenge to feed them well on a budget. But I figured it out, you know, and some of the tools that I used are things that I'm going to share with you today. Not having enough time and energy was also a big cause of my stress, because raising 3 kids and working was a lot. And I'm sure everybody can relate to that for other things in their lives. It could be being a caretaker for another person. It could be whether it be a family member, an adult family member, or a child. It just takes a lot of time and energy. There never seems to be enough time in the day. Lack of knowledge can also be an incredible source of confusion and stress related to eating. There's so many different things out there. How do you know what's true? Right now, there's the accuracy of the nutrition information is pretty questionable, but the SNAP-Ed program tells you the real deal when it comes to nutrition. It's based on many, many years of research. There's also the lack of support. Sometimes we have great plans, but we don't feel like we're getting the backup we need. We aren't getting the encouragement to continue with our goals, and that can be very stressful. So these are common barriers. You know, there can be other ones, but these are some of the things that I hear the most from people when it comes to trying to eat better to take care of themselves. People often mention these as, you know, barriers to doing that. So next slide. When it comes to budget, one of the important things to be aware of is the SNAP program. You know, many people are trying to make ends meet and don't realize that they might be eligible for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program that is available. If you want to find out if you are eligible for SNAP, it's a supplemental program. It won't cover all of your budget for food, but it will certainly help if you're eligible. You would go to this website and find out if you're eligible.
And we will.
Oh, well, sure, Wendy.
Yeah, sorry, Elizabeth. We're going to post these links in the chat box. We may not do that until the end of the presentation, but everybody will have a chance to sort of copy and paste them or click on them later.
Thank you for reminding me about that too, because we're going to include quite a few links that'll take you right to some of the things I'm talking about, so you don't have to search around. And you can also stretch your food budget with some of the SNAP-Ed resources, the education resources. That's what our program provides. We help people learn how to use the resources they have to eat well. So I'm going to share some of the resources that we use to help people in New York State do that. Next slide. So the SNAP-Ed resources can really help with the 4 things that I mentioned that can be barriers to eating well. The resources are very reasonable recommendations, and there's many tips to help with your budget. They're very simple and user-friendly. They're not complicated. A lot of nutrition information can be overwhelming just because it's complicated. The SNAP-Ed resources are not complicated. It's like I mentioned before, the information that we provide is evidence-based information. Nutrition is a science, but it doesn't have to be complicated when you're applying it. Dietitians, our best thing that we do often is taking very complicated scientific information and making it easy to use. And that's what the SNAP education resources do. And often people feel lack of support. So we have educators all over the state who can help you. And we have many free tools and links that can help you at home and from an online resource. So the next slide. SNAP-Ed New York is a great website, and it has many, many resources, and I'm going to share some of these with you. Next slide. If you go to the bottom of the first page, when you click on that link, you will see a list of SNAP-Ed workshops or locations of SNAP-Ed workshops. These are designed to help people who are SNAP participants stretch their benefits and know how to eat well by using their benefits. You'll see that New York State Office for the Aging is circled. That gives you our programs, but there are also programs all throughout the state. Now, our programs are aimed at older adults over the age of 60. They're specifically tailored to those people, where some of the other regions might be more aimed at children and young families. So if you click on that New York State Office for the Aging, it'll take you to the next slide. This is an example of our calendar. This is for September. And you can see there's a lot of workshops. Now they're all over the state. So if one of them looked interesting to you, you could click on the time and that will take you to more information about that workshop, where it is, who's teaching it, the time, and some other details, the contact information. So next slide. And SNAP-Ed resources online are no-cost resources for everyone. So there's the link. You can go directly there to the page I just showed you if you click on that link. And some of the other things on this website are tools for meal planning. There's lots of recipes, food demos, shopping lists, comparison shopping information, nutrition information, all sorts of tips, and links to other free online resources. So it's a fantastic website. And I'll show you a few of the things you'll see there. Next slide. The recipes are very popular. They are easy to prepare. They have common ingredients. There's nothing worse than looking at a recipe and finding out you don't have 10 of the ingredients that is required to make the food. And it's a short list of ingredients, so you don't have to spend a lot of money buying things you may never use again. They also, on the recipes, give you the cost per total recipe and the cost per serving. So you kind of get an idea of how much impact that recipe will have on your budget for the week. And there's nutrition information on each recipe. There's a shopping list for ingredients. And some of them have food demo videos, which are very helpful, particularly if you're not, a person who knows a lot about cooking. It's great to see a video of how to do it. Next slide. You can look for different recipes on this page. And what you can do is put in the category means maybe whether it be breakfast, dinner, lunch, a snack, whatever category of recipe you're looking for. And then the ingredients, say you're looking for something you want to make dinner, would be the category, and maybe you want to have some chicken. And if you put chicken in the ingredients and submit it, you'll get a lot of recipes that have chicken in them. And they're designed for dinner because you pick dinner as the category. So you can really narrow down your search. You don't have to spend a lot of time looking through things that you are not interested in making. So next slide. That can be a real time saver. Here's a recipe for cranberry oatmeal balls. And I made these a couple of weeks ago and they were a big hit. You'll see a lot of the things I talked about on the recipe. You'll see a list of ingredients that isn't terribly long. Of course, there's directions. They tell you the utensils you'll need, because sometimes that can be a problem. I never used to have a food processor. Someone gave me one, but prior to that, if it said food processor, I really would have a problem making that recipe. So it kind of prepares you for what you're going to need. And then there's an arrow pointing to a picture of the food. When you click on the picture, there might be a video attached to the recipe. And then the nutrition information. They don't list everything there, but they list many of the important things you want to look at on a label. Next slide. You'll see a shopping list to the left, so you know exactly what you have to get. You can check off the things you might already have in your cupboard or check off the ones that you need to buy. And it also has the cost per total recipe and the cost per serving at the top. You might not be able to see it, but it's up at the top near the shopping list. And then where it says save time and save money, there's some, different ideas of how you could adapt the recipes, or what you could, if you don't like this recipe, maybe there's a similar recipe that you could try, or if you do like it and you want to try something else that's got oatmeal in it, perhaps. It gives you ideas. So there's a lot of great tips in that last section. So it's not just a recipe that you're getting on this website. You're getting a lot of valuable information that can really save you time, money while you're trying to eat healthy.
Yeah, Elizabeth, I really like the similar recipes. section because,
Yeah.
you know, like for this recipe, for example, you buy a tub of oatmeal and then you think, well, I
Yeah.
don't really want to eat it for breakfast. What am I going to use it for? And it gives
Yep.
you some suggestions for other recipes so you can use up the rest of
Yep.
that oatmeal and not waste it, which is, you
Yeah,
know, such an important part of
exactly.
budgeting and doing things cost effectively. Yeah,
Yeah, you don't want to end up with 6 months later, you find that, you know, canister of oatmeal in there and you're like, oh, I never used that for
right,
anything. Now I might
right.
have to throw it out. Yeah, good point, Wendy. And then the next slide. Let's see. Oh, this is some videos that are not necessarily recipes. Some of them have recipes in them, but they tell you more about the nutrition of the recipes and different foods. Like if you're not really sure when people talk about fiber, what does that mean? Or if you're a little confused about nutrition facts labels, there's a video on that. I really enjoy some of the ones like basil tips and tricks. You know, when you buy basil, sometimes if you buy fresh basil, you really don't know what to do with it if you don't need all of it, or you might be storing it incorrectly and you can actually ruin basil if you put it in the refrigerator. I found out the hard way. If I had had this as a resource, I might have saved my basil. We have a question in the chat. It says trail mixes in the grocery store don't seem too healthy. What kind of ingredients? Oops, I lost that. Looks like makes a healthy
Yeah, healthy trail mix
ahead.
or on the go or make ahead snacking. That's a really good question.
I make trail, when I was raising my children, I made, little bags of trail mix for them using dry cereals, like wheat checks or something. And then I would put in a handful of raisins, the dried cranberries, maybe some nuts. It depends how old they were, if I put the nuts in or the dried cranberries.
Right. Yep. I've seen it made with Cheerios before.
Oh, yeah.
Start
Yeah,
out with
Cheerios.
Cheerios sort of as a base, and then you
Yep.
can add the other things to it that you like. And
Mhm.
I think that sometimes it ends up, more economical to make it that way
Oh,
as opposed to
yes.
buying it prepared. Yeah. Yeah.
They can be very expensive. And if you find a trail mix you like, but it's expensive, you can maybe put a little of that in with cereal. I used to use cereal a lot to extend trail mixes for my kids and myself. Sometimes you don't want something that's as filling as some of the trail mixes are too.
Right. There is a question in the chat. They say they want information on diabetes, and I have good news for you. We're going to be doing an Ask the Experts on the subject of diabetes in the month of, is it October or November? Lisbeth?
November.
November, because
Mhm.
that's National Diabetes Month. If you need immediate assistance and you are over the age of 60, I would encourage you to contact your local county office for the aging because they all have registered dietitians that work with them, and they can do individual one-on-one counseling, which is very, very difficult to do in a forum like this.
Yes.
And they're able to tailor, your questions to your lifestyle and what you need. So definitely tune in November for Ask the Experts. But also, if you haven't contacted your local dietitian at your office for the aging yet, it's a free service if you're over the age of 60. So please look into that.
And they can also talk to you on numerous subjects,
Right.
where sometimes dietitians attached to hospitals can be only limited to diabetes and
Right.
certain types of kidney disease.
Correct. Yep.
But
Yep.
your office for the aging dietitians can talk to you on many subjects.
Right. That's a really good point, Lizbeth. And that has to do with sort of insurance and reimbursement and things like that. There's
Exactly.
another question, is organic healthier?
Well, I wouldn't say it's necessary. Healthier is a very broad term. Nutritionally, not necessarily, but when it comes to overall health, certain foods might be better choices if they're organic. But the people that do studies on food will tell you that, for example, any fruit or vegetable is better than no fruit or vegetable. So sometimes people will not be able to afford organic fruits and vegetables and just not eat fruit and vegetables. It certainly is better to eat non-organic fruits and vegetables than skip them because you can't afford the organic.
Yep, I agree with that. I do know that many times the organic is more expensive. Um, and I do like to say that any fruit or vegetable that you eat is better than the fruit or vegetable you don't eat.
Yeah,
And I think that at least when I was in school for dietetics, what seems like a million years ago, they recommended some
yeah,
things organic, just because organic usually, but not always, means less pesticides are used. So if you buy something that is not organic and you wash it thoroughly, and you don't have to use bleach on it or soap or anything, just rinse it under clear water and dry it. You're going to get rid of most of those pesticides. And I think that that's probably uh, a lot less expensive than some of those organic things that you might be buying. So yeah, so that's really where that comes from, is
yeah.
the less pesticides. But nutrient wise, as Lisbeth said, it's not necessarily has more organic, doesn't have more nutrients in it than non-organic.
No.
Right.
And I always kind of think about, people say, well, which things should you maybe buy organic if they're more reasonable? So the prices of organic fruits and vegetables is coming down compared
Yeah.
to other ones because there, more people, the demand went up. But
Right.
at the same time, I always think, well, if I was a bug and I landed on spinach, could I make a hole in that spinach? Probably. So, that might be a food they use a little more pesticides on because they got to keep the bugs off of that. Strawberries are the same way because, if you're a bug and you start eating those foods, you're going to damage them pretty easily. Something like a orange, maybe not, because there's a pretty good skin there. You have to tunnel through that. So I always kind of think of real life situations of, to help me guide some of my choices. But a
Yeah.
registered dietitian can answer your specific questions about specific fruits and vegetables and grains and things like that, whether they need to be organic
Yeah.
or should be. I don't think anything
Right.
needs to be organic, but whether, that's a worthwhile choice. Let's see, do we have any other questions or do we get them?
Not right now.
Oh, good.
I think we can go to the
I mean,
next
not
one.
good, but because we like questions. But I'm glad we answered the ones that are in there.
Right.
These tip sheets, whoops, there they go. There are lots of tip sheets. When I showed you the list of videos and this list of tip sheets, these are only the first pages of, the tools and tips and videos. There are many, many more. So there are many tip sheets on here. All the questions that you're asking us, I'll bet you some of these are actually in the tip sheet section. So next slide. Here's two things that were on the tip sheet section. When you clicked on one of them, you get a grocery game plan. So you can plan out your meals. That's very key to both eating well, because when you make choices in advance or you plan in advance, chances are you're going to do a better job at eating well. You're thinking ahead, you're planning your eating instead of doing automatic eating. Also, if you plan ahead, it helps you avoid impulse buying.
Mhm.
Like if you come home and you haven't planned anything, what do most people do? They either order out or they go out to eat. And that can get very expensive. So, planning something ahead, you don't have to think about it too much if you have done your grocery shopping based on what you planned. And the grocery list is very helpful because it matches up to the different food groups that people should include in their diet. And I often check the store flyers to find out who's got the better buys that week.
Mhm.
And I'll add the things that I need in those different categories. And that'll be based on what I plan for meals during the week. You
Yeah.
save a lot of money when you do that. Has been my experience.
Mm. Yeah, I agree with that. And I like planning things out ahead of time
Yeah.
because I eat better.
Yes,
Like,
me too.
right? Like you said, Lisbeth, and I'm a dietitian, right?
Yeah.
Right. Everybody kind of falls short in certain things because we're strapped for time and we're busy and
Yeah.
things like that. And it's easier to make those decisions on the weekend when you maybe have some time.
Mhm.
And I love my crock pot, especially this time of year. And then I put my meal in the morning, and then when I come home, it's done, and I don't have to think about it. I love that.
I know, I know.
Yep. Oh, we
I saw a question about whole food, plant-based diet. Well, that says a lot about fruits and vegetables, actually. I think a lot of people don't eat enough fruits and vegetables and whole grains. And when you eat more fruits and vegetables, generally they're come whole, not always, sometimes they're cut up, but you're going to eat better when you eat a little bit more of those types of foods. Usually that's usually what's missing in most Americans' diet is fruits,
yeah.
vegetables, and whole grains.
Yep.
And
And
those are plants.
yep, yep. So that's plant-based. And
Yep.
you can do vegetarian as
Mhm.
plant-based, or you can just do less meat. So the
Yep.
Mediterranean diet is a really good example
Mhm.
of a plant-based diet that isn't devoid of meat, but doesn't have quite as much as the typical American diet does. So
Right.
if you're able to, do some research, just Google, the Mediterranean diet, and you can get some good information from there. And also on the SNAP-Ed website, they have a lot of really great vegetable and
Mhm.
plant-based menu recipes, really good ones. So
Yeah, they do. Yeah, one of the SNAP-Ed messages is to vary your proteins, and I do that a lot. I eat fish probably at least twice a week. And fish can be a little bit expensive, but there are ways, it could be tuna fish. It could be a frozen fish that's on sale. So I work it in at least twice a week. And I love beans. Beans you can make so many different ways, and they're so economical. I had a bean burger today for
mm,
lunch with avocado and tomato, and let's see what else was on there. Some onion. It was really good. I enjoy it more than I would some other kinds of sandwiches.
yeah.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah, we do have another question about what if you don't have computer capabilities to get the
Mhm.
help, is there paper that you can get from organizations? Yeah, and I would go back to, calling your
Yes,
area agency on aging, and the nutrition help that you can get from them.
yes.
They would have a registered dietitian who routinely does nutrition education both in groups and individually. And
Mhm.
they certainly would be able to give you some paper flyers. They're very good with their paper flyers out in the
Yes.
counties. Yeah, absolutely.
Most dietitians are pretty good at
Yes,
handouts. We love our handouts.
we do. Oh,
Um,
and this is another good question. Fruits and
yes,
vegetables are frozen and or canned vegetables and fruits as nutritious as fresh. And that is a SNAP-Ed message, right?
yep,
Fresh, frozen, canned, and dried, it all counts.
that's true.
And I've heard the argument that frozen might be even more nutritious than
Mhm.
something that you get from the grocery store that is quote unquote fresh, because the frozen has been picked and processed. Usually they blanch it, boil it a little bit, cut them up, and then freeze them. And they do that at what they say, is the peak of their freshness. And other items that you might get fresh at the grocery store may have actually been sitting there for a little while. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Lisbeth.
No, that's what I was gonna say, Wendy.
Yeah.
Sometimes people feel bad when they can't access fresh fruits and vegetables all year round, but I use frozen many times, and in a pinch, I'll use canned. I mean, I use canned beans sometimes and
Yep.
rinse them off really well. It's a big time saver.
Yep. And I absolutely have found more and more low sodium
Yes,
or no sodium added versions of canned vegetables
yes.
in the grocery store, just in the regular section, not in the health food section.
Mhm.
So that was really, I was very happy about that, to see that happening more and more. I think
Yes.
a lot of people were told don't eat canned vegetables because they're so high in sodium. But
Mhm.
like Lisbeth mentioned, you can use canned things that are either low sodium to begin with, or if they're regular vegetables, just rinse them really well. You're going to get rid of a lot of the sodium that way. Yeah.
Mhm. For those of us who hate to cook, how nutritious are canned soups, chili, and beans? I missed the rest of that.
Yep, and then it says, is checking the label sufficient? Are the additional ingredients like preservatives the main problem?
Well, the sodium is probably the primary preservative. And that again can be linked to, some health issues, generally high blood pressure or, retaining a lot of fluid. Um, so I always compare, if I have to buy something canned, something like that, I will compare labels and look for the lower sodium one.
Hmm. Yep.
But that, it could work into your diet. Sometimes, if you have a higher sodium item, even if you pick the best choice among the choices in terms of sodium, it still might be higher than something you made yourself. But then you can look at the rest of your diet that day and be careful not to have other high sodium foods. It's the whole picture. It's not just, it's your whole diet that's important, not just one aspect.
Yep. Yep, and I agree with Elizabeth. I love frozen vegetables. I use them several times a week. They're just easy for me to make. I prefer cooked to raw vegetables. That's just the way I am. My husband's the opposite. He would eat a salad every day if he could. So everybody's a little bit different.
Mhm.
But one of the nice things about frozen is there are a lot of choices without any added sauces, butter, cream. If you just go with the plain vegetables, it's going to be a very low sodium food because
Right.
it's the natural plant without anything added to it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we do have a
Yeah.
question about what can I substitute for not being able to eat green vegetables?
Oh,
And, without knowing the reason why you can't eat the green vegetable, it's a little more difficult to answer, but certainly just eating as many of the other different colors as you can. And if you're concerned about sort of leafy green vegetables like spinach and things like that, some people are because of a medication that they might be on and vitamin K. Um, Usually you can eat those vegetables in limited amounts as long as you keep that amount the same throughout the week. So if once a week you eat a green vegetable, and you continue to do that, that should not affect your lab values very much. But certainly there are other uh, green vegetables that aren't quite as green, right? So I
mhm.
think of iceberg lettuce, right? It's still a vegetable. It has fiber in it. It has lots of water in it. So those things are good for you. Um, and I think that like romaine lettuce, it's green, but it's not like the super dark green. So it might be, you might be able to tolerate that a little bit better than some of the really, leafy green vegetables.
Yeah, a lot of that has to do with the portion that you eat. If you're just
True.
having a
Yes.
little bit, maybe you can combine it with something else.
Hmm.
Like
Right.
often I make peppers with green beans. So in that person's case, I might do a couple green beans and a lot more peppers, and
Right.
saute them. Um, and a little bit of olive oil or something.
Yep. Right. Yeah. Oh, I love that idea, right? Of sort
Mhm.
of mixing things in. So if you have some broccoli, for example, and you can't eat a lot of broccoli, throw some carrots in there or some cauliflower in there and mix it together, and that's going to sort of dilute the really green stuff. So that good tip, Lisbeth. I like that one.
Yeah, or stir frying. We use carrots and peppers and onions, but we could throw a couple green beans in there, and you would get them, but you just wouldn't get a lot of them.
Right. Good. Yep.
Yeah.
I like that.
So I think we'll move on to the next slide because I think we got most of our questions.
Yep.
Oh, one of the great things about the snapednewyork.org website is that you can link out to other resources. You can link out to myplate.gov. This is one of my favorite resources,
Yep.
and we use the MyPlate image here in much of our SNAP Ed education. Oops, SNAP education. I repeated myself there. This image is very important. This helps you to know how much of the different food groups you should be eating at any given time. This is the goal, and there's a lot more information about how to eat well using this kind of plan. at myplate.gov. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Next slide. Because the plate kind of gives you that balance of portions and nutrients. To have a healthy diet, you need a variety of foods because each food group brings its own package of nutrients. You know, you don't want to leave out groups of food if you want your diet to be complete of nutrients. And, you know, like the protein sources, like we mentioned, they don't have to be meat or animal source. They could be plant sourced. The vegetables don't have to be fresh. They could be frozen or canned. Same with the fruits. Grains are important too. They all, and the dairy group, they all bring their own special group of nutrients. Sometimes we get a little, the portions or the amounts of the different groups out of whack a little bit. We might lose the balance, and the plate method helps us keep that in balance. A lot of people avoid grains when they have diabetes, for example, because they're starchy. But if you eat an appropriate amount of grains, that's fine. You know, that your body is fine with that. It's just when you overdo it. If you eat a whole plate of pasta, that might be a problem. But if
Right.
you eat a quarter of your plate pasta, you know, with other foods, that's okay.
Yep.
So it's a balance. Next slide. So here we have some of the SNAP-Ed messaging. I love SNAP-Ed messaging because it's concise. It's brief. It doesn't get into a lot of complicated ideas, but it tells you the important things. So if you make half your plate fruits and vegetables, that's really important. That's one of the things I would focus the most on in my diet because that tends to be the area that slips away sometimes. You know, we get focused on the main dish, which might incorporate grains and protein, and then these are sometimes afterthoughts. But if we start our meal planning with fruits and vegetables and then think about the main dish, that's one of the things I do to make sure that they get on the plate.
Right.
Not everything that you eat has to be whole grain, but whole grains have more nutrition in them generally. The fiber in whole grains, that's what makes them whole grains. That's where a lot of little mini nutrients are attached. Things like chromium and magnesium and all these little important things we need. We don't need very much of them, but often they're found on the fiber in grains, whole grains. Moving to low fat or fat-free milk and yogurt, that's a good choice. That helps keep our bones mineralized. Or if you're younger, it helps them mineralize. And if you're older, it helps them stay mineralized. Varying your proteins, we talked about that a little bit. You know, mix it up a little bit so you get different nutrients from those proteins. And rethink your drink, because a lot of times we fuel our bodies with drinks that have fuel or calories, but they don't have very many nutrients in them for us. So a glass of milk, if you drink milk, I do, because I know I'm getting calcium, I'm getting vitamin D, I'm getting riboflavin. You know, it's a lot of the things that I need personally in my diet. You can get them from other sources, but that's an easy way for me to get some of those nutrients. Any other thoughts on this, Wendy?
I think, it's a good point about, what you drink. And I'm a big proponent of water, drinking, enough water every day and being well hydrated. It helps in so many different ways. And I actually have a cup of tea that has no sugar or milk in it. But it's like apple cinnamon or something. So it's great for this time of year. Felt like fall this morning. So
Certainly did.
it was time to get that out. Yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, water is a challenge for me. I did not grow up drinking enough water, so it's an effort for me. But, some people in my family like it better, room temperature. I like mine cold. So I keep a glass of ice water near me. And when I'm home, I put it in a really pretty glass because for whatever reason, I like it better when it's in a pretty glass than when it's in a plastic glass. That's just me. But anything that kind of makes it attractive
Mhm.
you can add a squeeze of lemon or lime. There's all different ways that you can, change it up a little bit. But water is very important because your body has to transport nutrients and it has to transport waste products after the body's used those nutrients. So it needs fluid to do that. And to, run efficiently, you need things coming and going.
Yep, lemon
Next
or
slide.
lime in my water is my favorite.
Yeah, I love lime.
Yep.
Next slide. Oh, this is a great thing. This is new on the MyPlate website. They added this quiz that's not very complicated, and it's in Spanish and it's in English. And you put a little information in, and then it asks you some questions, and it tailors some goals to you. And you can pick goals, simple goals, and it helps you track your progress with your goals. I love it. I think it's a really good tool and it's free. Some of the nutrition apps are free, but they don't provide as much good information as this one does. This is very interactive and it helps you keep moving along with your changes in your diet.
We do have a question about herbal teas and seltzer water. If
Mhm.
they count for hydration, I would say yes. I
Oh,
think
yes.
Leah
Yes,
Elizabeth
definitely.
agrees with me. And certainly, anything with sweetener in it it's fine, but you want that in moderation. If you're able to find things without calories, that's better. This is a question for a dentist. What about plain ice? Uh, besides being hard on teeth, if you're chewing your ice, don't talk to me about it. You got to talk to your dentist.
Well, if people, and you know what, if you chew ice, that's something that is a clue. Some people who chew ice, actually, many people who chew ice, and don't ask me why it's connected, I don't think they
Right.
really know, is connected to iron deficiency
Yep.
anemia. So if you find yourself craving ice, I would definitely, talk to your doctor about maybe they could do some blood work to see if you're anemic. That's a very, I won't say it's common, but there's definitely a link between those two things many times.
Right. And
Yeah,
I
hurt on
there
your
may
teeth.
be a question about the ice. I'm not exactly sure where it was going. But I have heard before, I like cold water, just like you do, Lisbeth. And so my
Mhm.
water must have ice in it at all times. I really don't like room temperature water. And I actually have several of these insulated bottles that I
Mhm.
bring with me. And I really like them because they keep my water cold, even if I have it next to my bed at night. When I wake up in the morning, the water's still cold, all that jazz. But I once had someone say to me, "Oh, well, room temperature water is better for you." And I was like, "Well, what are you talking about?" "Oh, well, you're supposed to be able to absorb it better, or and I said, Your stomach is 98 degrees. How long do you think it takes for the water to warm up in your stomach and your stomach to absorb it?" So I think that sometimes like these messages get so like maybe it's minimally better for you or just slightly better for you, and then it gets presented as though this is the best thing in the whole entire world. So if you think about it logically, again, the water you drink is better than the water you don't drink. I'm
Right,
not going to drink a room temperature glass of water. I'm not going to drink it. It's much better for me to drink all of this that's got ice in it than not touch that other glass of water.
right. And
So
when the ice melts, it turns into water. So yes, it
right.
does count in the total hydration
True, true.
picture.
Yes, and one of my favorite things was always when I worked in acute care and long-term care was to tell patients that things like ice cream and popsicles count as fluid because
Yeah.
they melt when they hit your stomach. And people were always so thrilled to hear that ice cream counts as a fluid.
Well,
Yeah.
anything that melts at room temperature is definitely a liquid. Yep.
Yep, yep. And so you can
Except
count that.
actually Jello counts as a liquid, but
True.
at
Right, but I think
the
you're right.
same
Like
time,
if you
yeah,
left it on the counter, right, it would
in a
melt.
hot day, it might,
Right, right, it
it
would
might
melt
not. It
eventually.
depends on the Jello.
Right, so Jello actually, you're right, Jello counts as a fluid as
Yep.
well.
Yeah, I worked in the hospital for many years,
Yep,
so that
yep.
was, on a liquid diet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, and so, right, is ice good or sufficient for hydration?
Yeah.
Right, so it counts towards hydration, but if you were just trying to eat ice,
Yeah.
or just suck on ice cubes as hydration, I think it would be difficult to meet your needs
Yes.
because it's taking time, right?
A
I
tiny
wouldn't be able
amount.
to, right? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So that's really what it is. Yep.
Yeah.
But it
Definitely.
counts. Sure.
Yeah, it counts. So do coffee and teas,
Yep.
same
Yeah.
thing.
Right. So years ago, they used to say if it had caffeine in it, you couldn't count it at all. And
You
that
count
never
it.
really made very much sense to me. Caffeine is a mild diuretic, which means it makes you urinate a little bit more, but it's not enough to just say, oh, just you can't even count that cup of coffee.
No, it doesn't dehydrate you. That's
Right. Exactly.
the case.
Good.
I think we'll go on to the next screen.
Mhm.
Um, when I was talking about the MyPlate quiz and all that, they have all of this information on an app and it's free. So all the things I talked about that you can access or is on the app, plus more. You can also connect the app to, if you have some devices at home or you wear a watch or you have Alexa, you can connect that to, um, the app that's on your phone. If
Yeah,
you have a
that's really cool.
smartphone.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of things on this website that were not there even
Yeah.
a couple
That
years
are
ago.
new. Yep.
It's a really great website. Someone wanted to know if Jello is safe. Don't know why it wouldn't be. It's sugar and, well, unless it's
Gelatin.
diet Jello and gelatin, there's really not a lot of nutritional value. It could be a source of, added sugar that doesn't provide any nutrients. It's really only provided in hospital as a way to get some hydration into you and a few calories. That's its only purpose when you can't eat other things.
Right. Right. And sometimes, you need to be on a clear liquid diet. And it's
Yeah,
probably one of the only times that I eat Jello.
yeah,
But yeah, so it's useful for that. I know when my father was getting older and he was at the end of his life, he liked Jello.
yeah,
And so we would give it to him because
yeah,
it made him happy and it gave him some more hydration. And so,
yeah.
I don't, there's colorings and things like that, but
Right.
I would imagine that all of the things that are in it are regarded as safe.
Yes, it wouldn't be on the market if it
Correct.
didn't meet the FDA standards.
Right.
Okay, next screen, I think. Oh, this is a great website. This is our website.
It
This is
is our,
the New York State Office for the Aging SNAP
yep,
Ed website page, and we have some great links out to good things on here. Don't you just love that picture though? Every
I
time I see that
do.
picture, it makes me happy.
Yeah. Yeah. And our communications team put
Yes,
this together for us as a landing page and it's
wonderful.
really beautiful. Yep.
And there's so many good things on our website. Next slide, I'll show people what that is. Now, Wendy can tell us about this because she is the star of What's Cooking with NYSOFA. So
That always, yeah.
you can talk about this slide, Wendy.
Yeah, so that always cracks me up. I don't think of myself that way, but I really do. I like educating people and helping them. So this is a really great way to do it. So one of the things that Elizabeth talked about earlier was all of the great recipes that are on the SnapEd New York website, and all of the recipes that are on the What's Cooking with NYSOFA show are from the SnapEd New York website. And I love them because, like she said, limited number of ingredients. Oftentimes, when I go to get the ingredients for the food demos, I have some of the stuff. I already have some of the stuff I need. Not all of it, but usually some of it. And yeah, easy to prepare. It's not a list of 12 or 15 ingredients. It's a limited number and usually quite economical. So highly recommended. And the cooking demos are a lot of fun. So they're usually about 12, 15 minutes long. And if you look at something on the website, so for like one of the ones that we did was like I think it was in August, like a blueberry salad that
Mhm.
and
Very
had onions, red onions in it, and feta cheese. And I thought, I don't know if I would like that. But once I made it, and you can see it in the bowl, it sort of gives you a better idea. Oh yeah, I think I would like to eat something like that. And the dressing on it was delicious. So yeah, it's great.
And you do such a good job at, going through all the steps. So something that you might think is beyond your capability to make, Wendy shows you it's not hard, it's just a
If
matter of
yeah,
putting it together sometimes.
if I can do it.
No, that's not
Because
what I
I
meant.
love, right? No, no, seriously, right? Because I love food.
Yeah.
And I love to eat food. And I'm a decent cook, but I'm not a really amazing cook, right? So if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Well, we try to make sure that that's the case. And the snap
Yeah.
out recipes are like that. They're not intended for people who have tons of experience cooking. I mean, I'm a pretty decent cook too, but even if I wasn't, those snap out recipes would be great.
Yep.
And you can see Wendy, usually the last Friday of the month here
Yeah.
on
So I think
Facebook.
next Friday.
Yep. And then you can see the recorded ones on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. So there's the link for that. So if you missed them, you can always go back and watch them.
Yep. And
Next
if you
slide.
really, really want to go way back when I was doing them in my living room,
That's right.
that's always very interesting. But we have a brand new set and it's beautiful. But there are a few of
Well,
them still in
I
my
like both of them. They both
Yeah.
have their pluses there. And then, of course, we have this program.
Yep.
That's the Expert the Nutrition Edition. And we have previously recorded episodes on many topics on our Facebook and YouTube pages. So you can access this program like that as well. And next slide. I think there was something there. Oh, there it is.
There you go.
I forgot to take the animation off of that one. Save time, save money, and eat healthy. That's the goal, or one of the goals of the SNAP Ed program. And I don't know if you can tell, but I'm very enthused about this program. I think the resources are fantastic. I used to use them all the time in previous parts of my career, before I came to New York State Office for the Aging. They're really good. And all the, the foundation of everything in SNAP Ed is evidence-based. It's based on the dietary guidelines. It's based on the MyPlate. This is the foundation of what all dietitians teach when they talk about nutrition. So it's great stuff.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Roger, so much for running that
Yeah.
for us. And I think that we've gotten to the questions that were in the chat, but I just have a couple of questions for you, Lisbeth, because we have a few minutes left. One of the things that I was thinking of when talking about sort of self-care and how important nutrition is to self-care. And there's also, you gave us such a wonderful and comprehensive overview of SNAP-Ed and all the resources that are available for that. Eating regularly, can you talk a little bit about that with regard to self-care and how that's important for nutrition?
Well, it's very important because you can't get everything you need. If you use the MyPlate image, that has a lot of what you need, but you can't just get everything you need in one meal. Your body is running all day long and all night long. And when we're up and moving our bodies, we need to fuel our bodies. Remember, I started off by talking about how food is fuel.
Right.
Well, you wouldn't run your car with an empty tank. You wouldn't get too far. It's the same with people. I mean, our body is built for survival. So sometimes it can manage with very little food, but it doesn't, it's not going to run well. And it's probably not going to last very long if we don't take care of it. Self-care means eating regularly. I wouldn't go more than, most people do not feel good if they go more than 5 or 6 hours without eating. And usually you can tell your body wants you to eat because you'll start to get cranky. The first part of your body that notices is your brain. It says, hey, where's the food? We got stuff to do here. We need fuel. We need the raw materials to do it. So you might get cranky. You might start to feel kind of fuzzy in your thinking. That's your brain telling you it's time to eat. It can get extreme. Some people will get dizzy and might get shaky. That's, when it gets more extreme, your body has to sound the alarm louder because it's telling you, hey, it's time to eat. Like I said, sometimes the body can adapt to not eating, but that's not the way we should be taking care of ourselves.
Right.
We need to
Right.
give our bodies an assortment of fuel, throughout the day.
Yep. Yep. That's a really good way to say it. And I know that, the MyPlate, we talked quite a bit about the things we
Yes.
should be including in our diet. Can you talk just a little bit about the things that we should be limiting in our diets?
Well, many things, our food source that comes from nature as is doesn't generally have a lot of sodium in it or a lot of added sugar. When you add a lot of sodium to a food, that might influence your heart health, particularly your blood pressure. So as I mentioned before, you want to compare labels and kind of keep an eye on that. You want to keep that, on the lower side. And if you want specifics on that, I would talk to a registered dietitian because they'll know your medical history and they get information from your doctor about your health. The other thing is added sugars are not the same as total sugars on a label. Added sugars generally have no nutrition in them. The nutrition has been stripped away or there just wasn't much to begin with. So that's not a very valuable source of fuel for the body. So you want to kind of keep, a little bit of a limit on that. It's not evil,
Right.
but, it's not a great way to spend your fuel budget, I should say. And fats, are different types of fat in our diet. Fats that come from plants are generally better for us than fats that come from animals. That's the way I kind of look at it. And when you look at a label, saturated fat is generally animal sourced in our diet, and that's probably not the better kind for our bodies. There may be some links with heart disease if you eat too much animal fat. It's not quite as simple as that, but that's a good rule of thumb to use.
Right.
And we
Right.
don't want to get into the weeds here.
Right. Yep. But I think that's really a good way to sort of summarize it. And
Yeah,
I
so
don't
those
see,
are the three things.
yeah, great. I don't see any other questions in the chat right now. So I think that we can sign off and
Great.
say so long, and thanks so much for everybody who chatted
Yeah.
in a question and
Great.
tuned in to talk to us. And when will you be with us again in October?
It will
Lisbeth?
be October 14th. That's a Friday, and it will be again at 1:00. And I will have Tiana Pettinger with me, and we will be talking about mindful eating.
Oh, excellent.
among
That's
other
a
Yeah,
Yeah, that's all right. Awesome. That's a really great topic. Awesome. All right, great. Thanks so much, guys.
bye.
We'll
Thank
talk to you later.
Bye-bye.